Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. There's a lot in this world you should know, and love in life is strange. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. And like all live streams, it's going to be very different once again. It's going to be a lot of fun and very, very interesting developments. But before introducing our guest tonight, I see many people have had problems registering to join the new Loving Life TV platform. So I'm going to unpack how easy it is. Look, I have to tell you, I had the same problem. I did the same thing wrong. Okay, so don't feel that you were dumb. Believe me, I got it wrong. But I'll show you how easy it is. Okay, let's go to the screen. This is the first screen that you see when you log into lovinglifetv.com. Now, this login register has been put up here right in the front so people can't miss it. But later on, what we'll probably do is have it down on the side here somewhere. Now, this first page, you'll see there's only a username and password. There's no reference to an email. So you can only use this one once you've registered. If you look at the login link below, to the right, you'll see register now. So if you haven't registered, before you even think about using these options up here, you've got to register first. So right next to login, to the right, click register now. There you go. Now you see you've got username, the missing email on the front screen, and your password. And that's how easy it is. Then you register, sign in, and you're in. So that's how easy it is, guys, to sign into lovinglifetv.com. And yes, I made the same mistake. I tried to just put in a username and password because I couldn't find the email option. But there's the email option there. Just to go, okay, so I think that kind of explains how it works. All right, let's get back to, okay, now Eddie did have issues on the TV screen. He said, okay, I switched from the big screen to the notebook screen and I can see it how to register now. So I think on the big screen, there might be a problem registering. So do it on a notebook to register and then you should be okay. Tonight we're meeting a very special friend of the Loving Life family, Geben Jonker, who is working on a project called Project Eden. We will be talking about this development in the project, or talking about the developments in the project we discussed many months ago now, and where it is heading now, as well as we'll be talking about the need for unity. Let me get Geben on. Here we go. I do have a surprise for Geben, by the way, guys. You'll hear about in a second. Hi, Geben.
Hello, Uncle. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. Excellent. We are live, and we've got about nearly 200 people watching us at the moment. And before discussing Project Eden, I have a surprise announcement to make.
Okay.
Now, let the Loving Life community know that Geben is a man with an enormous heart, and his actions a few months ago were pivotal in saving the life of General Isaac van Zyl after we had that appeal. I am not going to go into any of the details, but would just like to say welcome to the shortlist of channel heroes, Geben.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I'll tell you who our channel heroes are, and this is in order that they actually were announced as channel heroes, and we've only got a handful. There's Patrick Fisher, Davy Oosthuizen, Philip van Velbergen, Dwayne Crummock, Marlena de Villiers, Sean Pate, Fiona Timms, Dan Berriman, Winston Kutsia, Rudy Geldenhuys, Jan van Riebeck, and now Geben Jonker. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. It's quite a distinguished list. I hope I can live up to it.
You have already. You have already. And I've been waiting for this moment to actually announce it, because it's best when I have the person involved actually in front of the camera. Okay, now a few months ago, well, it's actually quite a while ago now, we talked about Project Eden. And since then, like with any new project, things change and you change course. Do you want to tell us what has happened and how it's evolved since then?
Yes, sir. So I think Project Eden, like I explained in the first video, was more of a concept, and it was similar to a type of kibbutz, but more applicable to our situation here in South Africa. And I think with the lockdown and everything that happened, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to structure this in the most sustainable way so that we can obviously help our people as far as possible. But what we realized through this process is that there's already other initiatives that's far ahead on this course. And what we also realized is that maybe our involvement in offering a solution to our people is more from a different perspective. For instance, we realized that our skill sets, and we were almost trying to reinvent the wheel, but I'm not, how can I put it, I'm not, sorry, my English is not always the best. I'm not unhappy that we went through this process, because I think it led us to a much bigger understanding of how we can change things drastically on a much larger scale and make all of these various solutions that people are trying to offer currently to make them more viable. So I think we are moving away from the safe haven farm, but to almost enable it to flourish in the same sense, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. Now, I'll get back to you in a second. I just want to address the people watching and just say, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. And please, if you haven't done so already, remember to register later to lovinglifetv.com. It's going to be our new platform going forward, and obviously we'll keep on using YouTube for a couple of years still, so that's not going to change, but we will be transitioning to our own platform in the next year or two, and this is just part of the transition process. Okay, and also please, if you have questions for Geben, just drop them into the side chat, and I'll put those to Geben later. Okay, so now Geben, just so the audience knows, you have a lot of experience when it comes to projects. Would you like to tell people what you do professionally so they can understand that this is something that's right down your street?
Okay, yes, I come from the building industry. I studied land and property development and also quantity surveying. But quickly, earlier in my career, I got more involved in the asset management side of the industry. And that's basically where my speciality lies. It is more from an asset management perspective, developers perspective. So getting teams involved, developing systems to reach certain objectives depending on what the investor wants to do, whether it's from a property side or from other asset side. It's once you get to understand the technicals of a certain project, then you can apply your asset management skills and financial modeling skills to and strategize how to optimize that system so that it can best, well, layman's term, to optimize what people are trying to achieve. So for instance, if you want to develop a mall as a institutional investor or as a private investor, we can assist you in understand. And I'm just using this as an example, not that I have a lot of experience in malls per se, but I think large scale asset management and how to optimize within that environment, that is basically what I specialize in. And more from a financial modeling perspective. So I'm not necessarily the project manager, but I can help the clients identify how to reach their strategies and then help them develop a business plan that will ultimately best support what they're trying to achieve.
Right. Now, you've been running around the country quite a bit in the last few months, haven't you?
I have. I've been trying to build bridges between all of the various leaders. There's a lot of them that I haven't seen, but there's a lot of them that I have been able to see. And yeah, so I can elaborate on that. It has been
we'll
an
get
insightful.
to that in a minute.
Okay, sorry, sir.
Now, you're already in the advanced stages of building safe haven farms, aren't you? Can you tell us where you're at with that?
No. I'm not. We personally not. What we were trying to achieve is to develop the plan of how this safe haven farms will work. And what we realized through the process is that the farmer is actually more adapt to doing that. And that I think if we can move on to the next part of the discussion, then I can explain better why we have moved away from the safe haven farms, not indirect, but acting more as an indirect role. Like I said, if you look at this Eureka, there's Chatel, there's various initiatives that's at advanced stages of doing these safe haven farms. But if you look at the legislation and the law and all these things, it's quite a tricky thing to do in a short space of time. So we realized that there is not enough time for us to do this on a large enough scale to have a large enough impact. I mean, you can either want to help one community or you can help 1,000 communities, and that's why we changed course in what the solution is that we want to offer that will enable safe haven farms to happen as part of larger solutions.
All right. Now tell us about Chattel.
So Chatel is exactly what Project Eden wanted to achieve.
Right.
The difference is I've spoken to one of the leaders who's far ahead on this, and they've got rights in place, everything already. So a right farm, they know what to produce on there. They've got all the various skills and peoples around there. I don't think it's my privy to speak too much on their behalf, but all I can say is what they have done, it would have taken us probably a very long time to achieve that. And that's why we realized through this process that let them continue with what they're doing, because they have already set the blueprint for the safe haven farms and safe communities on farms. That is basically where we actually want to take their hands and make it much stronger, but also have a much larger impact with our initiative. So Project Eden hasn't gone away, but it has changed its course a bit.
Right. So as you say, you're like hands off, but other people will develop the projects and farms and stuff like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's. So you're saying Chatel is already in an advanced stage. How can people who are interested in getting involved contact them? What's the best way to reach out to Chatel?
Okay, I think I have already gave Marlena the details of the right people. So I think what would be best is if Loving Life and Chatel can get into contact with each other, and then I'm sure Bram will give you a platform where people can get involved. I know they have a WhatsApp group and various other forms of communicating with them. So I think that's basically it.
Right. Now, when we talk about this whole concept of safe haven farms, we're talking about a place where families who might even be in a squatter camp, for example, who are willing to work hard, are able to somehow form part of that community. Is that correct, or do you have to buy in to be part of it?
I'm not sure. I don't think that is the case. I think, like I said, I've looked at what the legal side of what they put in place, that they shared with me, and various other information. But I think I don't want to.
Oh, my computer's come back. I don't know what happened there.
I can hear you, sir.
Can you hear me? I hope. Okay. I hope that it's still. My computer just went black. The screen went just totally black, but it's back. So you can hear me, okay, Geben?
Oh, everything is perfect, sir.
Okay.
I can't see you though.
Oh no, that's fine. That's my streaming software. All right. If everybody can still hear me and still hear the live stream, can you please just type 1 in the side chat? Because everything on my computer seems to have frozen. I don't know what's going on here. Okay. 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 Yeah. Look. This is crazy. Hang on. Let me just see. Okay. Yeah. I've got it on another one. So yes, everybody can see me. So that's good. All right. I'm going to just see what's happening. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to be flying blind, guys. Okay, because everything on my computer is just totally frozen. Okay, so let's get back to various initiatives, puzzle pieces to fit it together. Just tell us all about that, Geben.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump in here. Part of why we went to see as much of the leaders out there trying various initiatives, whether it be defensive or security, or like Chattel with the farms. There's various initiatives, there's various charities. And what we did is we went to speak to these people to understand what is keeping them from going forward. And I think the big thing that came out of this whole thing is that we are trying to do something where people must work the whole day, look after their families and everything, and then out of their own time try and compete with, let's call it, our enemies, however you want to define it. And what we realized is that the economy that we, let's call it the boervolk, the Afrikaners, the minority people in this country, is basically we are creating the economy in this country, but that same economy is used against us. So what we realized through this whole process of investigating Project Eden is that we realized that the solution is right in front of us, and that safe haven farms wouldn't be the only solution, because we can actually, by just coming up with solutions where we take back the economy that we create and the economy that we use, by taking back that portion of it, we can uplift the whole minority group in this country. We can provide our own security solutions. We can, it runs into the hundreds of billions of profit right. that we are putting into corporations, which is not standing up for what's going on in this country. I'm not going to name corporations' names, but people can think for themselves where they do grocery shopping, who buys from the farmers. None of these organizations has done anything to stand up for the situation in the country. And we think it's a very good idea that, if you remember from our previous discussion, part of what we wanted to do with Project Eden and the safe haven farms was to set up our own supply systems for food. And what we realized is we can do this without just creating safe haven farms, and part of the profits that we will be redirecting back into, say, a volkshuis or a coöperatie, we can then use that to train up people and provide them with jobs again. If you look at basically what it boils down to is that BEEE is our biggest enemy in this country. It's not corruption. They can't steal the amount of damage that system is causing to our people. Last year, when I was at Gelofte Dag in Blood River, there was an NGO from Australia, and they were a libertarian organization. I can't remember their name, but what stuck with me is what they said is that they didn't believe the propaganda about South Africa and what's going on here, and so they commissioned their own study to find out if, and it was a study more on the white population, and what they found out that the amount of people that is going into destitution, only about a quarter would go into destitution in a normal society. So it means 75% of people that ends up in a squatter camp or among the white population is typically the people that used to build Spoornet and FCOM and all these brilliant institutions and infrastructure that we have in this country. So, and you would see now with COVID, this was even before COVID, so I would be very scared to really know what that number is now, but they were talking about 600,000 to 800,000 people. Now, if you take 75%, wow, that's almost 15 to 20% of our population that wouldn't in a normal society end up in a squatter camp, that's now in a squatter camp because of this racist policies that's in this country. And even if you look at it from a broader view, you would also see that it's actually not benefiting anyone that's not directly involved in this corrupt system. And so we see this as a big solution, and with the technology that is currently available, we are very excited that we can actually not only take back our economy, but improve it to such an extent that we actually would be able to deliver much more benefit to the people. And yeah, so the idea is to create a type of a Volkshuis. Now, you would understand why I'm talking about the puzzle pieces, is that if you look at what we are trying to do and what other people are trying to do, it's like puzzle pieces. And if we can give it an economic platform, you would see that those puzzle pieces will come fit together brilliantly. So I'm not somebody that is preaching for any initiative to stop doing what they're doing, because if you look from a bit different perspective, you would realize that they are actually building all the pieces that would eventually come together once we decide to take back the economy that we create and consume. So basically that is where our focus has shifted off. And if you look at that, we can actually within a 1 year, we can make a massive difference. And I think then you will see these puzzle pieces come together, because otherwise we are fighting a losing battle, to be quite honest, because we cannot compete with a system that uses our own economy against us while we're working and then trying different initiatives beyond that. So it's not a sustainable solution. And I think what we're trying to achieve is and when I'm saying we, I'm talking about everyone that's willing to form part of the solution. And I didn't meet one leader that didn't see the benefit of what we're trying to achieve here. So this is just a concept yet again, but it's so easy. I mean, I went to the Free State, saw some farmers, and they explained to me these guys know exactly what they're doing, and they explained to me exactly how the system is working against them and the consumer, and all the money is left in between. So if we can shorten that supply chain, we can actually uplift most of the people in this country within a couple of years. It's very inefficient. It's set up to serve only certain people, and I think basically that is where our focus has shifted. And then you can see how this would tie in with farms and making it safe again, because we would be able to take young people, train them up, and fully employ them through this coöperatie model where everyone that wants to form part of it will have shares in it. So, and this, I think, in our opinion, a much better solution, and would have a much wider impact that we are seeking, I think.
Right. Now, I just want to address the side chat. A couple of guys have said, hey, the image is frozen. I have to tell you, I'm just hanging on here by the seat of my pants, because Skype is actually saying, not responding. I can't do anything with it. It's just, at least we have the audio working, which is important, and we have an image, which is great. I can tell you that with my XSplit software, I can't touch it. I can't touch the panels. It's just completely gone black. I don't know what happened. luckily, I can still look at my crib notes. I can still see. I had to reload my live stream so I could see the side chat. That's now back live again. I don't know. The computer just had a frothy moment, and Skype is not responding at all. But at least we can hear Geben. Now, I was just going to add what I see as probably the most disturbing thing that I heard Ramaphosa say in one of his Address the Nation speeches, which happened in the second quarter of this year, where he said to the nation, the economy is doing just fine under the lockdown. And he said what it's going to actually speed up is black economic transformation. And what I read in that was that he was actually saying that a lot of the white businesses are going to go bankrupt, and then the opportunity will be for the well-connected members of the ANC to walk in there at bottom prices and take over. Do you remember that comment that Ramaphosa made back then?
Yeah, I think it's one of quite a few that is made. But I've got news for him, because he's going to learn that people can, let me explain it like this. Self-determination doesn't start in the international law, and it starts at home. And, the feeling that I'm getting from the population that I'm involved with is that people are pretty gutful, and that's the space we need to be to start working together and make a change. I would love to see him, how he's going to stop us taking produce to our own facility that in Afrikaans wat dit verwerk, and then distributed it directly to homes and providing people jobs. I would love to see how he's going to do that. So what I think, what that tells people is that they must wake up very quickly. And, when I discuss this plan with some people, they immediately want to go to businesses that complies to BEE and make life difficult for them within the context of the law. But you can't do that if you're not supplying an alternative. So I can't say to somebody, stop complying to BEE and stop feeding your children. But if I offer a proof of concept that works, and people don't, and when I'm saying I don't see it, I is the initiative, it's not the individual. Because there's already a lot of people that's getting on board, and I can only add certain skill sets to the solution. But we've already got a lot of farmers that's willing to do this, and food is definitely the place to start. But what we ultimately want to say to Mr. Ramaphosa is, please ramp up the pressure, because we're just gonna get more people involved on the other side, and he would be standing without an economy. And in international law, if you can prove you have your own economy, you have the right to protect it. And that's what we are aiming for. If you can think, if 500 to 1 million people in this country start doing what I'm proposing, this government will fall over by itself without a gunshot, because they would just not have a tax base to fund him. And that's what I'm saying we should do, because what they're doing is they trying to get us, most people that are taxpayers and building this country, to becoming destitute. And the biggest enemy here is not the government. I hear always people say ANC. The ANC is not having power. It's people who give them that power, and that power doesn't come from the voter base. It comes from liberals that's keeping and feeding that economic system and complying to their racist law. I would like to ask people to tell me, and I was only born in 1986, but if you research South African history, all these big corporates made a big noise about South Africa in the 80s, which eventually led to the downfall of apartheid. Now, I'm not saying apartheid was right. I mean, if you ask me, I'm a vierkleur. I'm not a apartheid apologist. But why are they quiet now? And people need to ask them that question. So is the convenience of going to a shopping center and feeding that system, and that's what we need to change here. What we need to do is to set up our own supply chain and take all these industries back. And we don't need to take it back for everyone. Everyone which is like-minded and can see this country is where it's going. We only need those people to start standing together. And I think there's a lot of us. And like I said, we are sitting with a massive amount of skills in which are destitute today. And what we need to do is to give those people hope. You know, sometimes I speak to farmers, then they say, yeah, but the white guy doesn't want to work, but they want to pay them peanuts. And then those people have a totally different culture. But you would realize if you can create a system where you take all these billions that's swept up through the middle portion of the supply chain, and let's just focus on food for now, but you can add almost all the industries under the same principle. You would be able to pay the farmer a lot more for his produce, which would allow him to pay his workers a lot more for their labor, and you can give everyone shares in what binds the system together. So at the end of the day, everyone is working for everyone and sharing in the profit. So it's not capitalism, but it's also not communism. And if you go back in history, you realize this is just the way good old enterprise used to work. And what we need to do is just to set up those systems. And it's not that difficult. I mean, it's really not. I mean, within 1 year, we can already create a large base and of setting this up. But we need to prove it. And I think that is the key here. And that's why in the new year, we won't focus on anything other than to set up these supply chains with the farmers and the consumers on the other side, and show people that it can be done. And I think once we get to a massing point, this thing will burn like no veldbrand caused by the EFF ever.
Right. Now, you've been out to Bultfontein. Are the farmers over there interested in the whole project and the whole concept?
It's funny, sir, they've tried to do this quite a couple of times already, but it's typically what they run into is what I ran into with Project Eden in its original sense, is that they are skilled as farmers. They're not skilled on the other side. Now they're trying to do that, and it doesn't work because they don't have that skills. And then what we want to do is typically what an asset manager does is just align those skills into an optimized system. And that's why so they've been trying to do this for years, but it's been keep on failing because we need other people to stand up and become part of the solution. We need guys that's working. I even went and saw some chemical engineers to ask them, you know, do you need this massive plant somewhere in Joburg that feeds the whole Gauteng a certain product? And they said to me, no, you can actually do it a lot cheaper if you follow a decentralized system where you produce, say, for a certain region, everything that region consumes, you can put up a plant for it, and right. It would actually, with the transport and all those costs that's added to the supply chain, you know, that's massive. We know of opportunity to actually lower the cost of food, and make profit and all the other benefits that come with it.
Now, you mentioned there that, you need key people in the team to actually make this all happen. What people are you looking for at the moment to actually fill gaps?
Okay, so what we want to do is the first one we want to start with is, I'm not going to give it away over here. I think our enemy watches this too, but what we're going to do is we're going to need certain core skills, and we're not going to start with things that needs to go through large production or verwerking. I'm not sure what the English word is. I don't know if you can help me with that one, sir. But
working together?
No, verwerking is when you take something and you turn it into a product. So there's a raw product.
Manufacturing or something like that.
The manufacturing process, sorry.
Right. Okay.
So that manufacturing process we're going to follow. So we're looking for the path of the least resistance so that we can start generating this model. And we're looking at things that's not taking very much high complexity. And if you study this, you'll find there's a big gap that we can latch onto. But we will need a lawyer, a very strong commercial lawyer, because we want to set the system up in the most honest way. CAs, chartered accountant, is definitely also another one. Farmers, logistics, transport, and then schemes that follow from that, like where the farmers supply a certain institution with a lot of, let's say, like a skaap kraal of a bees, sheep kraal or a bees kraal or a chicken house, and set up those things and take back that whole supply chain and then go to say 5,000 households and they sign up to buy directly from that system, and for every unit that they buy they get a certain portion of the shares, which means that at the end of the year they will then form part of that share structure. So we will definitely need a lawyer to help us set up that structure, but I think at this stage we're not going to need too many skills. The moment we've built this base where we can say, listen, here we've taken back a big portion of the supply chain, then we can start saying, okay, we need a chemical engineer for this. And what you will typically find is we will follow the path of least resistance because we want to have as big as much impact on as many people as quick as possible. So you'll find that there's a lot of existing businesses that's consulting to various other businesses. And what we will do is as we develop this supply chain that is following an uncomplex path, we will then start engaging with those businesses and bring them under the folks house. Now, if they don't want to come in, then they've must now choosing on which side they want to fall. And then we will start looking and recruiting those people. But the thing is, we can't start this business, and I'm calling it a business but it will be a folks business, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We can't start it with a cost structure because the people, how would you start a cost structure this big? You need to develop an income stream on a smaller scale so that you can then say, okay, we've now added this product and its supplementary products under we've completed that and we've got a viable business now for the people, and then we can start adding all the various professions. We want to eventually end up with construction teams, painting, plasters, plumbers, electricians, engineers, all the various professions, all the functions of an economy, basically. But we have to start somewhere which we're going to achieve the most with the least amount of money and add food security to it. Because if you remember our last discussion, I'm very much convinced that the government wants to destroy food production in this country because they are communists. And the communists never get full control over a population if they don't destroy the means of production for food. And I think that's why the path has, the process of financial modeling has led us down this path with input from a lot of people, where we need to start with this initiative, and the guys from Bultfontein played a big role in that, if I may say.
Yeah. Now, there is an initiative that's kind of going along the path you're talking about, and that's Oom Dirk at Philadelphia Arc. I believe you've spoken to him, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. I was actually scared to go and speak with him because I have so much respect for him.
Oh, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah. Uncle, I just need to let people out of the office. We have other meetings on the other side. So just give me a minute and I'll be back.
No problems.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys, look, just for those who've just joined us, just about 5 minutes into my conversation with Geben, my computer completely froze up. Everything went black. My screens went black. It just froze completely. And I thought I'd have to reboot my computer. But luckily, although Skype is now not responding, it's just saying not responding, I can't do anything with it. And you might see that little blue cartwheel, which means that, hey, nothing's happening, no one at home. At least we can still hear Geben, so we can still have the discussion. I'm sorry about the video aspect, but the content is far more important than the video aspect. And what I do not want to do is to shut down Skype and then find out that I can't reboot it or get it back up again. I'll sort this out later after the live stream is over. I know of the sort of tricks that computers can play, and I'm just playing this safe. Okay.
I'm back. Uncle Scott?
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back.
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah, I'm just checking some comments in the side chat. Okay, so basically what Project Eden does is it like project manages or gives assistance to, let's say a farmer says, hey, I've got a perfect farm here for what you're talking about, which is basically a safe haven. for a white community. And what you would then do is come in and actually give guidance on how they can do that. Is that correct?
100%. So, but I think we must just get away from the concept of safe farms, because if we do this, we will make everywhere safe.
Right.
I think that's important, and we will be able to provide a large amount of people with work and dignified work. And that's something I always say, you know, if you can't give dignified work, you're sitting with future problems coming along. And that's why we're saying we need to get us to a business model where everyone, from the producer to the manufacturer to the transport guy to the end user, have shares in what binds this system together. So we don't want to change people's individual business structure. So the farmer will continue being a farmer, and the manufacturer, those are probably the big ones that we need to set up, because the manufacturing currently is not in friendly hands unless they prove otherwise. But that's basically what we want to do. So let me give you an example of what we feel the Volkshuis can achieve.
Right.
So the Volkshuis can take a lot of young people that either doesn't have dignified work or don't have work, or sitting in a bad position. And when I'm talking about young people, it can be people of all ages, but just for the explanation part of it, let's just focus on the younger people. Let me explain it like this. So for the Volkshuis, then, as we set up these supply chains that's less complex, more easy to achieve and take over, we will obviously start generating money. And then obviously, as part of that money initiative, we'll take that money. So the Volkshuis shouldn't ever make profit. I just want to make that clear. The Volkshuis should never make profit. The profit will always go back into underneath the functions, like I explained, the producer, the manufacturer, everyone there should get eventually the profits. But the function of the Volkshuis would be to get all these people that doesn't have work, and like I said, young people, and put them through a defense course, similar like Marius, I think from EBS or something like that. And then you will find some people want to be in the security industry, and they will then stay under those Volkshuis security initiative. But everyone gets trained. But now we can start training people to do the various professions that vests in the Volkshuis, and we can then go and place them. Now, what you would typically find is, if you can give a farmer 4 or 5 young guys that's on a rotation basis, living semi-permanently, but there's always someone staying there, going to come and work on the farm and forming part of the security protection, and that's all part of the payment towards the farmer for his produce. I think that would start making sense what we are trying to achieve. Now, if there's farms like Chattel, we would obviously work together with them in their concept and optimizing what they would achieve. But ultimately, the idea is to take back the economy that we can, because you won't be able to take everything back. There's legal issues, but we can take enough back to make a real big change, and through that we can then assist people that want to set up, or if, say, for instance, Chattel sits with the blueprint of how the safe haven farm should work within the South African context, we can then say, listen, let's help them for all the people and put them on farms where they can have a different lifestyle or whatever they want to achieve in times of anarchy, because that might also happen at any time. So right. I think what I'm trying to say is that we need to start somewhere, and we need to get to a place where we start generating an income stream so that we can start let's try and put it in positive terms, try and uplift ourselves, this in spite of what the ANC or the majority of people in this country votes and stand for. And that is what we are trying to achieve. Now, we are actively starting next year with that day one, and I would think you would know there's some people that needs to form part of this discussion that can't at the moment, but once that is settled, I think the picture would become much clearer of where we're going to start with this initiative and how it will benefit everyone involved. And ultimately, we want to build a space where we can set up our own shadow government that's apolitical, if that makes sense. and fund them to serve the folk full-times and not part-time, because you would get people that criticize a leader. Any leader of an organization, but the problem is nobody is standing up and saying, I can do it better, this is the reasons, or how I can help you. Everybody is just becoming armchair critics. But hopefully with the EFF's Manavalis, sorry, I don't know what the English for that is, and
the terrorism.
the lockdown, terrorism, that's the perfect word for it. And with the lockdown, I think a lot of people has woken up, and this thing can become viable very quickly. So we've identified 3 hotspots that we want to focus on. The one is Pretoria, Bloemfontein, and then obviously the Western Cape. And we are also talking to some of the secession companies to try and assist and help them to form part of the solution, because I think the system is not only for bad political countries like us, it's actually the model for the future, and it can work very well.
Right. Now, I was just going to talk to you about the secessionist movement, because the Western Cape would seem the obvious place to set this up, because by having these communities working on farms in the Western Cape, you would provide food security for that particular new state, wouldn't it?
100%. I think, if you look at where the technology is going and where the political situation in the world is going, that's definitely the model to go forward. And it's funny that Switzerland has been doing this for hundreds of years. So it's not even that it hasn't been done. It's been done very successfully in Switzerland. And what we need to do is not interfere as much as they do in other people's politics. And that's just my personal opinion. But the canton system is definitely the system to go. And you'll find, as I understand the canton system, they wouldn't even let a supermarket sell produce that can be produced by that community itself. And that's the system where we need to go back to, because ultimately we are funneling, this share structures that just doesn't work and doesn't benefit the broader population. And that's what we're trying to change. So even in a good political country, I don't know if there is one at the moment, but under normal circumstances, this is still the best model to follow. And it's also the perfect model for when you are in a situation like we are currently here in South Africa.
Right. Now, it's interesting because tomorrow night at 8 p.m., I've got scheduled to be speaking to Dr. Peter Hammond, who you've probably met, Phil Craig from Cape Independence, and hopefully Michelle Mullett, who's actually in the side chat here as well. And we're going to be talking about this whole independence movement that's happening. So, it is becoming more and more in focus right now.
Yeah, look, let me put it this way. Whatever the outcomes would be, I can't say. There's too much things going on for you to trust anything at this stage. And I'm not speaking about an individual organization or any individual. That's just my perspective. What we're saying is we will work with everyone, but we are going to look at creating sustainable economy that we, right, the people, control ourselves. Now that would fit in with them, it's obvious. But we're not going to change course on what we're trying to do. But we're also not going to work against them. We will work with them. But, you might end up with a worse government in the first place or a much better one. Nobody can really say, because we don't have all the information available, who's backing what company, which money is coming from where. There's a lot of people that believe that there's people funding both sides of this system that we are in. So I don't want to get focused on those things. I haven't spoken to Dr. Peter Hammond. I think I've got a lot of respect for him on the few interviews that you did with him. But I've been speaking to Cape Exit directly.
Des Palm.
Des Palms, yeah. So I've been speaking to them, and I think we, like I said, whether it will be the whole west of this country that's a seed, or just the Western Cape, or just Cape Town, or just Orania, it doesn't change what we believe needs to happen. It will be only to the benefit of whoever gets involved or who erf or inherited that economy. So we want to create an economy that politicians cannot destroy. And I think international law and various other things, it will be very difficult for them to do this if we do this in a correct way. We don't need to comply to BEE. It's a false perception. Unless you want government jobs. But if the government doesn't have one single competent person willing to comply to BEE, what do you think is going to happen? They have to scrap it.
Yeah. Now,
And
how does Orania compare to the model that you're talking about? Because they've got a farming community, they've got a little town. That town is growing exponentially. It's doing very well financially. It's probably the only town left in South Africa that has services like water and sewage and electricity. I mean, it's basically just blossomed. Is this quite similar to what you're going to be working on?
Well, let me put it that way. You would find that eventually each community where they are currently at would get back to that stable level where they are. So that is the objective. So it's much the same, but we don't want to take all the people out of Cape Town and go put them on the farms. What we're saying is if the people in the Cape under the Volkshuis work with all the players that produces the various portions of what we need to make a living and having economy, if we take those things back and we don't supply it to corporations that uses BEE against us but expect us to go and buy stuff from them, they just keep quiet about all the murders and the corruption in this country, not making the same noise they did in the 80s, that's ultimately who our enemy are in this country. It's not the ANC, it's those guys. And I know I'm putting myself out there, so if I get shot, just know what happened to me. But somebody needs to stand up to these guys, and luckily we have enough farmers that's hurtful for them as well, and how they've been abusing the system and using the people who produce the value and not rewarding them accordingly. So to answer your question in a long way is that yes, you will find that Orania will be just coming back. All these towns that's been decimated by BEE first, corruption second. People need to realize that they can't steal as much as incompetent they are, and as bad a system that the BEE structure is creating. Just to give you an example, and this is sir, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Just to give you an example, if you read the normal news, they'll tell you, the tax base is getting smaller and our debt is increasing. But I sometimes say economists lie more than lawyers, because they're not telling people what about the 50 trillion rands worth of infrastructure base that's too short. Can you imagine how many years it will take to rebuild that infrastructure? Can you imagine how much debt you would have to go and to get back to that level of an Orania? So we are in big trouble, and if we don't start doing these things, I'm afraid we will sit with anarchy very soon. Yeah. But if we can reverse the situation and create an economy, when I'm talking about minorities, you will find once we get ourselves out of this mess, that the whole population will start benefiting from it again. But we're not following a political stance, apolitical. We don't even want to talk to a politician, because they could have initiated these things for many years and they've chosen not to do it. So we are apolitical, and we just here to try and create a solution. And people will ask me why I'm doing it, and I'm saying to them, well, my children needs to live.
Yeah.
It doesn't help I'm in a good position, but everything around me is falling apart. So what future will that child have in any case? And I'm not going out of this country, and they're going to have to kill me to get me out of here.
Yeah, well, the farmers will confirm that the ANC are doing diddly squat to help them. They're doing absolutely nothing. But they are helping the previously disadvantaged, aren't they? With millions of rands in KwaZulu-Natal, I just read yesterday. But you've got to be black. If you aren't black, forget it. You don't get a cent. Now,
But why haven't one of the opposition parties come up and say why are the corporations quiet? Why this? He must ask. People must ask these questions for themselves.
I can't believe that people like Johann Rupert and Nicky Oppenheimer aren't taking a more active role and saying, hey guys, this is not on. You can't do this to the minority group communities. What is their act? What are they up to?
Okay, let me tell you something. I was very small when a farmer told me this. But back in the day, these guys went to the farmers and told them to stop supplying the small handelaar, I don't know, the small retailer at each town.
Yeah.
And they're going to create these mega corporations, and they will get shares in it, and these corporations will look after them. Now, you must ask yourself, what has happened? That didn't happen. The farmer just went backwards. These guys became billionaires in a lot of these industries, and they are skipping it. Now, there's a deeper conspiracy. Now, when I say conspiracy, there's enough facts for any person to start thinking what their intentions are. You can look at Naspers that's involved with the Chinese government. Why do you think they got those shares in Tencent? That earned them those billions. So I'm saying things that I'm not very comfortable talking about, not because I don't know what's going on, but it's you put yourself out there, and what we're trying to achieve is something different. But I can just tell you that if we kept to the small retailer side, that food would have been much cheaper in this country. The farmers would have been better off, and the end user would have gotten the benefit as well. So it's the bad form of capitalism in a conservative sense, and much more sinister on the other side of the scale.
Yeah, well, Marlena was saying to me just the other day that I think she paid some exorbitant figure for a small pepper, in a shop. I think that's what it was. Marlena, you can tell me what it was and the exorbitant price that you had to pay. But yeah, it's just crazy what's going with the food prices in South Africa right now.
But just to show you how scallon these folks are, is that they would take a farmer and then buy certain produce from him. But then if some of that produce doesn't get sold within a certain time, they actually charge the farmer to remove it. But they don't allow the farmer to remove itself. But then you'll find they're selling it to another farmer for his pigs or stuff. You see how they're running the system. So what we're saying is that the ANC is obviously not right, but we are not going to go for the foot. We're going for the head, and the head is the corporations. The corporations are very complicit in what's happening in this country.
Well, they must be. Otherwise, they'd be speaking out.
Yeah, exactly. Every single bank, every single large corporation, they don't speak out. They are complicit. They are feeding the beast, and they are enjoying the benefits of it. And obviously, they have for many years already chosen a side. And you will realize these people in charge of these big corporations, they have people much more smarter than me advising them on where the country is going and all these things. Probably much better than any ANC advisor. They're probably advising the ANC. So these people can't claim ignorance. The way the media is structured, nobody talks about it. But it's time people start talking about it. It's time people go stand in front of SPAR head office and picket and do what the EFF is doing to our schools and our children, and go and do it to a flippin', I almost curse now, to a flippin' corporation, and ask them why are you doing this? Why are you complying to BEE? Why are you raping our children's future? Because that's exactly what they're doing. Those are the hard questions people need to ask themselves.
Yeah, but when it comes to organizations like Naspers, I mean, that is complete fake news, let's face it. But look, self-determination is clearly the only outcome for the minority groups in South Africa. And the sort of project you're involved in here, or the concept you're developing here, is really such an important strategy.
Well, I believe so, sir. So the thing is, I will say it again, self-determination doesn't start in the international law, it starts at home. If you want to keep feeding the beast, you don't want to be free. unfortunately. But if you want to become part of the solution, you'll do that. So, and you can't blame people. Somebody needs to stand up and start telling them these things, but ultimately, if we come up with a solution where everyone gets shares, and it can be an open, transparent system where everyone can benefit and we can take back our own economy. If you don't want to leave BEE and start employing based on competence and all these types of things, unfortunately, you will become the enemy of the other side. And people don't realize that, I think General Uncle Isaac van Zyl said it in one of his videos. There was a camp where they asked, and it was more a white type of voortrekker thing. And what happened is that the speaker asked the people, how many of you have considered committing suicide? Now, 385 out of 400 children stood up. That's where our children's psyche is. They don't see a future. I was at a braai the other night. We were 4 guys, and it's happened in other forums as well, but we were about 4 guys my age with very young children, and we all agree, if I have to go now, I take my children with me, because and that's horrible. You can hear my voice. It's a horrible thing for a dad to say, but that's where we are in this country. And unfortunately, they've already stolen our children's future. What we need to decide is we going to just let it slide and make their problem to go fix out of a much worse situation that we are in now, or are we going to be the ones that stand up for our children? And you would be surprised that these liberals must know there's a lot of young people that have already identified who the enemy is, and they are not very happy, and they don't see another future. Now you realize history teaches you push a Boer in a position of no hope, he becomes a very difficult guy to deal with. And I think we're not far away from it. People in this country think the EFF or this or that, but I'm telling you, this young Boers might become most people's enemy in this country if we don't give them hope and a solution of providing them with a future again. And I'm not trying to talk fear here, it's a fact. I mean, I'm in the same position. I'm 54 years old. My children are under 3, both of them. I'm so terrified, I can't even contemplate sending them to a primary school. It's just too a terrifying thought if you read this shit that they're teaching these children in the schools, and how degrading the morals is becoming. I can talk a lot about that.
Well, I noticed that the school that the EFF targeted, the name of that suburb has just skipped my mind.
Brackenfell.
Yeah, Brackenfell. I noticed that the MEC of Education in the Western Cape came out with a full and detailed report about this allegation of racism that the EFF jumped all over. And it turns out it's a load of shit.
Well,
there was
we know
no
that
racism at all.
No, but they didn't need a commission like that. The guy who made those claims, we know what his name is, and he should be, somebody needs to brought up that I have offered to help to lay a criminal charge against him, because he's already present for making false claims. That guy knew exactly that everyone was invited to that thing, and he decided to make a racial issue out of it. But you'll find that diversity training, and if you read what diversity training actually involves, it's not a thing. The name sounds pretty, but in practice it's not what it is. And we must carefully ask, is this another attack on a different level, because to amp up what's going on in schools? But in any case, that's just an observation. There's no fact to support it. But all I can say is I made a lot of friends there in Brackenfell. Some very nice people living there, and you can say, people like to say we whites are racists, but I can guarantee you, if the things that they are accusing of being racist, or all racists are doing it, so then I don't really understand how that's racist. And how can you be, that head boy, ex-head boy that said the school is racist? I've never in my life met a bunch of people that will vote in a person of another color if they are racist. That's the absolute most nonsense I've ever heard. So the media is so complicit in false reporting. I mean,
Yeah.
that should have been the headline when that. Why give a guy a platform? He's voted in the head boy of a mixed school, but where the majority of residents are white. Now in the Western Cape, you're not allowed to go and put your child in another neighborhood school. So if a neighborhood is majority white, you would find that most of the children in that school is white, and that's the education system. That's not the people and the residents of that area. So they've just lied about this thing from the start, and all parties was complicit in it. You know, there's photos of News 24 editors meeting with Julius Malema and with this editing team. I mean, and these are people are selling to Afrikaans-speaking people their news. Yet again, if you want to feed the beast, that's your choice.
Yeah, well, look, I have got little or no time for News 24. They're basically fake news as far as I'm concerned. But look, let's move on to the Boer folk. Okay, now when we talk about Chattel and other projects like this, we're really talking about projects which are aimed at helping the white minority group. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes and no. So yes, we're not going to start with a multicultural thing. I'm sorry. If other people can pull it off, it hasn't been done nowhere. There's no precedent for it in all the history, written history.
So what
we're going to focus on a volkshuis, but doesn't mean that volkshuis will not benefit all the other populations. And it doesn't mean if the colored people wants to do something, we wouldn't take their hands and work with them. What we believe, or what I believe is, and I think most South Africans believe this, why must I as a white man rule over the colored or the Bantu speaking people? Let them rule over themselves. I can't change their culture. If they want us to have a certain level of civilization, and that's what they choose, then it's fine. But we can then help them at least within what they choose. So, you know, we have always been a people that try and help. I think there's a lot of lies about, and you would know, you lived in South Africa. There were a lot of bad things as well in this country, but it was things that politicians did by creating a lot of fear. And there's a lot of aspects to it. I shouldn't speak too much about it. I didn't live too long in that era. But all I can say is that we are not trying to suppress anyone. We will, you know, you will find that once this thing gains a certain amount of traction, we will open up for other people to also come in. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But ultimately, we believe every culture should be able to live together in one country, but also govern themselves in that country. I can't force my culture onto another person or another culture. And I don't believe in that. But I also don't believe in oppressing anyone. So there's nothing stopping me from, I think I've said it enough now.
Right. Now, let's talk about the leadership in the Boer nation in South Africa. 99% of them are saying exactly the same thing, but there seems to be this infighting. You know, I want to be the guy in the brown suit sort of thing. How do we resolve that?
Okay, so obviously there's a psychological side to this, which I'm not the right person to evolve on, but I can look at it from my perspective and experience, is that you would get a guy who sees where this country is going and he stands up, but he creates a micro enterprise, but he wants to have a national effect. And what happens in that situation is things doesn't work. And then you get another guy who stands up for the same reasons, he uses the same tactics, maybe change it a bit, but we're never getting out of this micro enterprise structures. And part of it is not people's own fault, it's because they don't have the resources to support what they're trying to achieve. And you will find that because of how in silos these things are developed, that you don't get the right people's filtering through a organization like you would get in a private business. You would understand in a bank in the old days when everyone is appointed into competence, you had ways, the structures had ways where people who were very good at a certain thing eventually found a way to move up in that structures. But we are so disconnected that this never comes to fruition, and you find that then leaders get stuck into a position where he might have had added 10 times more value that is currently adding in a different position in a larger organization. So, but we also don't want them to stop doing that, because ultimately you can't provide a platform if you don't have an economy to support it. And we can't try and defend our country through beerdwachten. It's not happening. If you look at the old days, the commandos, they had a lot of funding and support from the government to keep the rural areas safe and those types of things. You can't do it in the way we want to do it. Yes, it's necessary for those people to still continue doing what they're doing, and I'm part of such groups myself in where I stay, because we have to do that. But the moment we need to give them resources, and you can only give them resources by developing income streams, which is lawful. I mean, everything that I'm proposing, we don't want to get out of the law. And it will also then maybe deter other people from taking the extreme route into a solution. Yeah.
Right. Well, look, I've had a couple of experiences where, I'll give you one example. Okay. Dr. Peter Groenewald, who's the leader of Freedom Front Plus, he's been on a live stream with me many months ago. And as a result of unfortunate statement that Hein Marx made while I was actually talking to the guy, and I actually said to Hein, hey, stop that. He got in a huffy, but anyway, as a result of that, apparently, now Dr. Groenewald has turned down coming onto our channel to talk to us, which I find quite extraordinary. Because we're a voice of reason and fit perfectly with that group.
Yeah, I didn't. Let me maybe answer your question a bit more less diplomatic. There's a problem amongst our people where the ego is more important than the child's future, and it's a very scary thing to say, but you would get individuals that's like that. And what we are continually saying to people is, me and you don't need to like each other. Even me and you, uncle, but luckily we do like each other. But, if you want to fight with me, let's go and fight. But tomorrow when our children's futures is on attack, then we must work together. So people need to realize, and we must stop supporting leaders where the ego is more important than children's future, because that's exactly what it is. It's children's future, which they are they're choosing egos above it. And you would find that in the one forum, it's the one who does it, in the next, it's something, I don't know, it's something that I'm not picking up under the younger generations. I must be quite honest with you. We also don't get along, same blood is running through our veins. But the difference is we tend to still pitch up the next morning, the few of us that are awake, and you would find that once people get children, that's when their eyes really go open. But it seems to be a bit of an older generation, and I'm not talking bad about the older generation. They've done a lot of great things, but it's something that I find, even in my own family, this ego thing. It's almost like the army never ended, and they didn't get the chance to get to all the positions they wanted, and that's just a joke. But that's something. It's difficult to explain, but you experience it in a lot of places. But I must say that I think things are changing, so it's not that bad. The discussions I had with people is that I think once there's something that gives sustainability to the various initiatives, I think people's minds will change. And there's a lot of distrust. You must understand, we have a culture of people frying. I mean, you are aware of situations that I've been facing myself. And that's unfortunately, if there's 5 boers in a room, you must know one of them is working for the enemy. And that's unfortunately also creates a lot of distrust between the various people. But I can't see how we're going to solve any of these problems if we don't create a platform with resources on it. And the beauty of it is it's there. We must just take it back.
Right. Now, obviously, the foundation for what you're talking about here with Project Eden is the farmland, because you need something to actually settle people on before you actually start developing. Now, how many farmers have you come across that have got land that is suitable who said, hey, we'd love to be part of this project?
Look, Uncle, I think we're missing each other here. We are actually moving away from the safe haven model. We don't see the need in it anymore, to be quite honest. And let me explain it. The thing is, what we want to do is we want to create a place where we take a lot of the money that's moving into the corporations in the middle portion of this economy, right, and move it back to the folk. Once you do that, you would be able to create your own security force where you won't worry if the police is going to do their job.
But you've got to have land, haven't you?
Yeah, but the farmers are already farming the land. They just need to send their produce to the folksies. Does that make sense?
A lot of farmers actually aren't farming their land anymore because they've run out of money.
Well, that's where the folksies will come in. Remember, people are buying.
That's why I asked about farmers like that.
Yeah, and those people definitely, that we would be able to put them back into production. Maybe not with the first initiative, but definitely with the second and the third one. And what I'm talking about in initiatives, we must start somewhere. We can't say we're taking this whole economy back now. We need to start somewhere, and that has the least resistance with the highest impact. And we've already identified exactly what that's going to be. But I would like the other party to elaborate with me on that, because he can explain it a bit better, because he is a farmer and he understands these things.
Right.
But the idea is that we will all, and maybe I was getting over my point too strong. We will definitely continue having same farms, but the concept of it being a kibbutz might not be like that, but you will still find that there's people who's going to do that, and we will support those initiatives, and we will learn with them and build out this thing. But what we're saying is that for us to go settle everyone on farms that's in destitute, we would be in war long before we getting to 10% of those people, and that's the shocking realization that we came to. So we're saying to each and every one of those initiatives, we want to help you. We're going to try and see if we cannot add you under the folksies and all the produce that you're not using on your farm, and putting it back into the economic system for the folksies. So that's how we will then strengthen whatever Chantal or Eureka or even Dirk is doing. I mean, and Dirk will be a huge part of this as long as he wants to, and I believe he does, because I think he's got such a huge amount of experience that he's already done a large portion of this. We need now to just commercialize it in a beneficial way.
Right. Now, decentralization is the key, isn't it?
It's 100% key, sir. The way the economy is set up was never, the last 30, 40 years, was never to benefit the people. It was to make a lot of money for certain people. So, and decentralization is a very difficult thing without the right right technology. But we are sitting now with that technology. So to give you an example, Google doesn't make money by advertising that much. They make money by supplying the people what they should advertise. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So because you're putting information into that system, and that system has algorithms that then point out to a supplier that in that area that they need so much of this. Now part of, and luckily there's, like I said, that puzzle pieces, there's already a group who's developed this app already. It's beautiful. We just need to add and latch on to that app and develop it a bit more. But what you'll find is what will happen is that we will get to a point where we will know exactly everyone in the folksies, that is how many meat they consume in that area, this. Then we as a folksies can, as a collective, start buying those things wherever from the farmers or what needs to be imported, all these various things, and then we can start supplying those houses directly. So we see the days of the shopping center, you can go look at smart people's research. Malls will be turned into something else. It's not a viable concept, and anyone who's building malls now, I feel very sorry for them. But so decentralized was a very difficult thing in the past, but it's becoming extremely viable thing now where we are moving. So part of this app, and maybe this is to answer your question about the leaders. Remember, there's no elected leader in this country. It's a guy who stands up, creates an organization, and then there's some people that feels they want to follow him.
Right.
But you will never build a nation or a folk up again like that. So what we want to do as part of this app system, and it's not only
shadow government.
The shadow government, we will, through this app system, develop a system where people can vote in a leader in their own area, and it's almost like delegates that gets voted in, and those delegates can then vote up the system till there's a leader, and then it can become an iterative process. I'm not saying I'm the expert on it, it's just a concept, so that we then can elect leaders, folks leaders. And the beauty of this is, the government opened a huge gap for us because they have this traditional bill. So nothing stops us to say we're the Boer people, we want the same rights, we want our own courts. If you do certain things in our areas, this is the court, this is how we're going to use it. And they going to put up a fight, I'm sure. But once we get massing on this exercise and getting all these puzzle pieces to start fitting in, whether they approve it or not, we will be able to vote in our own folk system. I'm just saying we should never allow God not to be part of it again. And there's very good riglyne, or what do you call it in English, guidelines in the Bible of how a folk size should be built up, and we must just follow those prescripts. And I think then we're free before we think of it. Whether the people will be doing it on a large enough scale, I wouldn't know, but I can guarantee you there's enough people for us to make an impact, at least for the people who wants to be involved, and then bringing in as much people under that system and giving them dignified jobs and a share in the business. I always say, if we ever get to a self-determination space where the Afrikaner or the Boer can rule over himself, is that we hopefully will never allow a public traded company again to operate in our country, if not at least say 30 or 40 or 50% of the shares of that company belongs to every citizen in that country. And that's not communism. I'm not taking away the enterprise element from it. If you understand how these shares and how they print money, it's a ridiculous system in the first place.
It's fiat money, it's worth nothing.
Exactly. So why can't they give the population shares in every single public traded company in the country? And people must ask themselves these questions. Now there's some problems with it, but there's more solutions in it. So we just need to than the current system at least.
Right. Okay. So basically, what we're talking about here is a folksace, where it'll be like a community that develops around the folksace. As it develops, it'll become more and more like a little Orania as it sort of progresses. And you're looking at building these across South Africa in places like Bloemfontein, the Western Cape, and places like that. Is that kind of a very quick summary of what we're talking about?
100%. So Pretoria, Bloemfontein, Cape Town, and there's specific reasons where we want to start in those regions, because you will find the supply chain amongst the route, there's a lot of actors that you need to get involved. So we can't go to Pretoria, and I think people need to understand why we're following the strategy. If somebody gives me 100 billion and say, go do this, it's easy. But none of us have that money, and if we take that amount of money from our people, we will sit with a very big problem. So what we're saying is that we need to interlink, but shorten the supply chain and create as much. So there would be spaces where the folksace wouldn't be able to offer all the solutions. But what we're going to try and do is, you can't start, for instance, go to Pretoria and say, okay, here is all the Afrikaans speaking people of this area, and they need all this produce. And now we're going to put up all these different things that are not produced in Pretoria to make it sustainable. That's just going to cost too much money. We will eventually end there. Does that make sense? But we can't start there. So we need to start with what is produced there, set up the supply chain between the producer, manufacturer, distributor, and the house. So you would never hear a retail shop in that process. The retail shops are gone. So if you have a butcher and you want to become part of our then you'll come under the manufacturer, but there won't be, at least at the start, not that interaction between the shop and the user. So I almost call it like a box that we supply to your house, where you eventually not, and we cannot yet again start there, but quickly, hopefully in the process, you can go on your app and say, this is the products that I need, that Volkshuis can supply.
Right.
And then it will get delivered to you on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis until we can ring fence this whole thing. And then you'll realize suddenly you are in little Switzerland, because your whole canton is set up. And then you can vote your leaders in, because there's an economic base to sustain them to work full time for you, the people.
Right. Now, people who want to become involved in Project Eden, how would they contact you, Geben?
Okay, so that is something that I don't want to let people waste their time now. I'm going to speak to these people that are working with the app and see how we can get people to get onto that app. I think that will be the best way, because for me as an individual to try and manage thousands of people's expectations is really not going to work, and it's probably not ever going to get off the ground. So we must use the technology. So part of what I'm going to do is immediately try and set up the first supply chain system, and then hopefully through your platform and various other platforms, we will then do marketing where people understand what the system is going to do and what is all the legal aspects of it. And then we want to identify, for say, in Cape Town, 5,000 households, in Bloemfontein, 5,000 households, and Pretoria, 5,000 households. And then we're going to mix and match up the supply chain systems within a certain band that's less complicated, so we don't need to build manufacturing plants and all these things. And that's when we're going to start linking up those processes. And then people will know that I can get this from the Volkshuis, but outside that weekly or bi-weekly delivery that gets delivered to my door, I must still go to Spar and go buy whatever I need to survive. And as the Volkshuis grow, that need will become less and less and less until you can get every single service under the sun in that Volkshuis. But it won't be an overnight thing, and I need to stress that. We need to build this from the ground up. If we start and try and do this thing, then I'm going to say to everybody, okay, everybody give me 10% of your income for the rest of the next 3 years, so that we can, and it would even actually take longer. So we've really done a lot of hard, that's why I think people didn't understand me that correctly in the first interview. A lot of it is understanding what is happening on the ground, all the technicals, and then modeling.
Right.
Maybe modeling is not the best word, game theory. Maybe a lot of people understand game theory better. So you take certain situations and you start running those models to see where do you end up, where's your kinks, and then you suddenly realize, okay, but if everybody does safe haven farms, it's going to take us 50 years to get the whole folk onto farms. Right. And then that's not going to work, and it's not, and we're not going to benefit. Who do you choose now? Who gets the right to be helped and who doesn't? Because, you know, if you go to Pretoria, I think people, especially in the Western Cape, will fall off their chairs if they know how many people are going into extreme poverty. And you would pick that up by speaking to the charities, and they would tell you that the need is just growing by the day. And so what we need to do is follow another strategy, and that's how we came to the solution that we need to take the economy back. That's the only way. We're already paying for our food every month, for our electricity. I mean, electricity. If you got 5,000 houses that puts sun panels on, can you imagine the amount of energy you would be starting to produce? So you can even start becoming independent electrically wise. Energy wise, at least from Eskom, and that is also something that will be forming part of the volkshuis. At the end of the day, you won't be able to produce all the energy you need, but if you can get enough people to supply the grid under a volkshuis, which then would change the whole system, and I think you understand where I'm going with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I just want to address the side chat. Guys, I'm going to be putting your questions very shortly to Geben. And please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. What we're talking about here is a concept under development, self-determination for the minority white community. And yes, I got your question, Emil. I'll be asking Geben that very shortly. Now, you mentioned earlier on that there's certain professions which you're lacking in your project, people like chartered accountants and stuff like that. If there are any people like that who are listening here, would you like them to email me? And once we can confirm that they're actually someone who fits that profession, I can then perhaps email the details to you. Because I'll give you an example. About 10 days ago, I got an email from a retired advocate. And he said, look, I would be happy to offer my services to the Loving Life family free of charge, pro bono, because I'm retired now. I'm late 60s, I think he was. And he said, you know, that would give me something to do. Now, are you looking for people like that to help you on the ground?
Yeah, so you have to understand, I'm not earning an income really at the moment. I'm doing this for free. And unfortunately, people that can form part of the initial phase will have to be able to do it for free and realize that
that's what I'm talking about.
100%. So if somebody is in a position where he doesn't need money, and I'm not saying in a bad way, really, people need to get me straight, but we can't afford all these costs. We're going to almost need every cent that's available to us to set up the first portions of this. We cannot afford to pay other people. So we're going to definitely need skilled people that are willing to offer their services for free.
Okay, what areas?
Well, so let me tell you what, I'll give you a list, but you can look at lawyers, chartered accountants, if you can get a landboukundige, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, basically all the professions that you find. But for the first portion, we wouldn't need all of that. I think the lawyer is a very important thing, and obviously people that has IT skills. So if you're a software developer, you can write apps, and you're willing to offer your services for free initially, then that is the type of people that we urgently need now. The farmers we have, and they will under their communities go and get people back onto that side of it. But you'll realize that for the first phase, we won't need that much of skills. I think lawyers and accountants or chartered accountants, people
that
really
critical ones at this stage.
They are the critical ones, because we don't need a chemical engineer for phase 1, but we're definitely going to need him for phase 2. If you want to take corn to a cornflake, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for now, maybe I can just share it with you. For now, the idea is just to get millies and set up feeding houses ourselves. And then from there, handle the manufacturing of the meat, slaughtering, or whatever you want to call it, into packs, and then delivering that to people's houses directly. That is where we want to start, and then controlling the whole supply chain that flows out of that. And then soon after that, add the next line, the next line, the next line, until we get to the complicated stuff. But at that stage, we will have enough income streams to afford under the volkshuis these people, because that's the path of least resistance we see. Unless there's a smart guy, or someone that doesn't need to be smart, but if somebody have a better idea, I'm more than willing to listen to it. But we've really done a lot of hard work to try and understand how to start with this, and I think we found that solution.
Okay, now there is a guy that I spoke to several months ago. He's in Pretoria, and he's developed a nutritious formula, which has now been used by quite a few of the squatter camps. And the reason why it's so popular is because I think I've got this right. I think for 20 Rand, you can supply 6 meals, and it's got vitamins and it's got everything in it. It's actually it looks like Pro Nutro, but it's obviously not. It's got its own formula. Um, is that the sort of guy that you'd be interested in talking to too?
Yeah, 100%. Look, so we're gonna do this closed end for the start, but people need to understand we just want to create a platform
Yeah,
that can grow from there. Um, Obviously, I would like to talk to him. It sounds very much down the line of what we're looking at, especially because while we start this, the need is not going to go away for people to be fed outside the people that can afford to pay for their food. Um, so definitely, I think what I will do is I'm going to take a break now from Friday till about early January, but after that, I'm gonna fully start working on this again.
Right.
We've actually worked a lot, even though there was lockdown. So it actually helped us to fast track a lot of the things
I
that
was
we
about
were
to say
doing.
that, Jake. Having a lockdown would have actually made you able to concentrate on this.
Yes, exactly, and now we can do it full time. I know now what I need to go and achieve in the short
Yeah.
term. How this will unfold in the long term will be up to the people. I don't know how to see it. I don't want to be anybody's leader. I'm here to serve, and I don't want any money out of this. And I want to make that very, 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 very clear to everyone out there. If I'm not going to take, I don't want a cent out of this.
Well, you're a channel hero now, so that's a recognition for your generosity. Um, and what I'll ask Marlena to do is if Marlena can contact that fellow who produces this dish, and perhaps put him in direct touch with you.
Yeah, and I think Uncle Dirk will also be very interested in that. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
you know,
I think that
there's a
people
lot of
like Go Purple, and there's a big charity in Krugersdorp that is actually using his supplement to actually give to people.
yeah, 100%. So I think definitely I would like to talk to him. I think that would be very prudent to do that.
Great.
Is that the right English word?
Now, from what you're telling me, you really don't want hundreds of people contacting you, but if there is someone who's a chartered accountant who's happy to work for free, what I'll do is I'll speak to that lawyer who said he'd be happy to work for free, and see if he can contact you so you can have a chat to him. But yeah, so any lawyers or chartered accountants, IT guys who develop apps, if they're interested in getting involved, just email me and just say exactly what it is that you can offer, and then I'll put them in touch with Geben.
Yeah, I think those are the three important portions, and people that has unique solutions like the guy with the protein food, obviously. It only helps us to have a wider impact in the short term, but I will reiterate, what we're trying to do is to do a proof of concept. Once we've got the proof of concept, then this thing must run, and then that's when you will find that we have some structure. And then I always say, you have to have a top-down structure, but the problem comes in if you don't allow it to become an iterative process. And I hope everyone understands what iterative means. So it means you need to do something in a centralized manner, but the goal is to make it decentralized. And the moment we reach that point, that is when it becomes iterative, and then you'll see that's when you can actually scale that let's call it that business model, for the lack of better word.
Right. Now, Geben, I have to apologize, but since we had that little crash on my computer at the very start of this live stream, when you do look at the live stream later, you'll see it's just a still image. And when I pressed the escape key, which was suggested to me in the side chat, it all went very, very grey. Well, it's very light, if I put it that way. So that's what happened there. So my Skype froze, but we're still talking, so that's great. Okay, I've got a couple of questions here for you.
100%.
I've got one from Corrie Zief who says, what does Geben Jonker think of Druid's Garden? I don't know what Druid's Garden is, but I guess you do. Druid's Garden, yeah.
Druid's Garden. Oh God. Sorry, I can't hear it like a...
Yeah, a druid, as in like a, you know, the early religious guy, you know, the
druid.
Druid, yeah.
Yeah, I've read up about that, but I don't think I can answer that, to be quite honest. There's various how can I put it, opinions on it, but you know, I believe I'm an Israelite. So does that answer your question?
Okay.
So if you know, another person would believe he's a heathen that's become part of Israel. I believe the Bible is very corrupted for a reason, and it doesn't mean God's word is corrupted. It means people corrupted it and decided what books must go into it. If you look at history, there's very good indication that there were Israelites who left Egypt before the Moses era, so they didn't wait for Moses, and that they were populating the coastal cities, and that a lot of the old religion got over time changed into more paganism and stuff like that. Right. So people might, that I don't think that's the answer maybe that the person wants, but that is what, that's the history that I have at it. So I don't believe, if you look at the Bible and you look at what God's unconditional promises to the children of Israel is, and you go look who shows that promises in the world, then people must make their own choices. But yeah, that's the best answer I have. So Druids, in my opinion, is a paganized form of the earlier religion.
Now, I have to tell you, you know how efficient Marlena is. And I've raised that nutritious food, and she says in the side chat, I have sent Geben the info on the nutritious food. It is 20 Rand for 6 people. And she went on to say, I will send Geben Jacques' contact details right now. So you'll have those at the end of this live stream.
Yeah, great. I'll be in Pretoria at some time. I'm not going to say when, then I will try and meet up with him.
Fantastic. Okay, I have a question here from Emile Theat, and she says, Scott, I want to throw a spanner in the works. My wife and I adopted 2 colored children. Would we be welcome to join such a project?
Yeah, 100%. I can't see why not.
Okay, there you go. There's your answer, Emile. iCat says, what does Geben think of ULA?
That's Uncle Hein Marx.
Yeah.
Well, my personal opinion is that they're trying to start too big. Other than that, I can't see any problem with what they're trying to achieve. I just don't think it's going to take a while for them to achieve the larger scale of secession. That's why I believe a smaller secession that can show, that can then scale as you add more people to it. Maybe I understand his thing wrong, but I really don't have any criticism toward it, other than maybe they're trying to succeed too large an area for a beginning.
Right.
And that's positive, not negative.
Yeah. Jen says, how will this work if South Africa's government confiscates the farms?
Well, if we create our own economy and they try and take the farms, at least we will have somebody trained to defend it. And we will have the food on our side, so they can... What do people think is going to happen if they start taking people's farms?
It's going to be a civil war.
100%. So that just gives us a better chance to handle that situation.
Yeah. All right. Look, I hate to end this live stream on a somber mood, but we have to look at the reality of this feral gangster ANC corrupt government, and that's a reality we've got, is that they are just self-serving and not interested in serving their own people, which includes the majority black population. They're only interested in looking after the black privileged amongst the ANC, but that's my little bugbear.
Yeah.
Now, Geben, is there something you'd like to cover that perhaps I've left out regarding Project Eden?
No, I don't think so, sir. I think the idea for me is that people need to hopefully see hope in that we're trying to come up with a solution that is sustainable. We are now at a stage where we are setting up with role players that are capable of producing what we want to start doing. And the next phase of it will be, once we've figured that system out in the early next year, it won't take long, so hopefully in the first 3 months, then we would want the IT guy to have a form of app, and then we would want to go and do marketing in a certain area. And we have to choose an area that can kickstart the model the best. So people need to understand that. That's why we're choosing a certain area for no other reason than to support the model that we're trying to create best. And at that stage, then we want to start to deliver to those specific houses and create the volkshuis, and then in that area surrounding it, try and bringing destitute people and giving them jobs and showing to people, listen, here we've done it on a smaller scale. Think about it, if you supply 5,000 people constantly in an area, 3 months later you can add another 5,000 and another 5,000, and that's under a singular structure. Say, for instance, I'm not just creating a new business for myself, which I'm not, then you would be able to scale it like that. But I think the idea is that we want to put down the minimum structure so that everybody doesn't need to go figure out this over and over again. And like I said, we want to create a volkshuis. Now, the volkshuis, in our opinion, will ultimately become something on a national scale, but for now it might be only regional, and then we can help people to set up those regional, and then I think the function will shift to rather fill in the gaps between the various volkshuises until it becomes one house again. And at that stage, then that will also show that the people are ready to govern themselves outside of international law, but without going outside the law.
I think that governing aspect is going to be very, very important. Having a leader for that community or that volkshuis, and I think that's going to be critical to the whole thing.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. So each volkshuis will be able to vote in their own leadership structure from the ground up, not from the bottom down. So then that's a leader that the people has voted in themselves, right. And the way we can help them people through technology to keep those leaders responsible. So if the leader starts doing what Uncle de Klerk did and various other people, then we would be able to change them much quicker. And because it's a decentralized political, if you want to call it political system, but the way I see it, a politician is there to serve the people. And the people allow them not to do that, unfortunately. Right. But that's a culture that needs to change.
Now, central to the volkshuis will be obviously Christianity. In other words, a faith
100%.
in God. And
100%. I met, I'm not going to call his name out here, I don't think it's my place, but I've met with various leaders, and I think all of us agree that we need a theocracy. Nothing other than that will work. So we will need a governing system that's based on God's law, God's word, not man's.
Right.
And that's what we're working, I think all of us working actively towards. I don't see another way that this will be successful, and that's part of my own beliefs, but we're not going to sit there and say you can't get a job because you don't believe. I think that's the wrong approach. We must, through the way we live, we must show people what is the right way to believe. And I believe, I'm a type of guy, I don't just believe in God, I also believe what he says. So if he says he's written his laws on people's hearts, then I believe him. So,
Yeah.
and that's how I see it.
And, I have to tell you that you're going to be on a collision course with the LGBTQIPRS, whatever else initial there is, community, because, they're actually, in some parts of America, I believe, that they're actually trying to outlaw the Bible because Bible is contrary to the human rights of the LGBTQIPR, whatever, group. And the tragedy is the mainstream media immediately put a slur on people who have an issue with those groups.
Yeah, you see, that's a very sensitive discussion because who gives them that platform in the first place?
Yeah.
It's unfortunately the places most people go to on Sundays. So, I read an article where one of the high lecturers or something wrote an article that he teaches people to become dominees, but he writes a book where he says God doesn't exist, and another one writes that they can decide how God's word
That's
must
crazy.
be. Well, yeah, and another one, which is actually even worse if you really think about it, because the one exposes what he's believing. The other one says, no, but we, the dominees, can decide from generation to generation how God's word must be applied. Now, we look around in the country and see what's going on, and I wonder if that was the correct way and people are believing what their pastors are telling them, why aren't we living in a utopia? Things are just getting worse. So somebody is lying somewhere, and if you go talk to your grandfathers, they were preached this is the way it was done in the 60s, 70s, and today it's different, and yet even 10, 20 years later, after, let's call it now, multiculturalism came into South Africa to its full fruition, these boundaries are just being shifted. And if you really analyze it, you realize that morally they're just degrading society. Now,
yeah,
I'm not a preacher, I don't know enough about these things, but God's word is not that complicated. And if you read something in the Bible that conflicts something earlier, then you must know that something has been written wrongly or there's something missing there. But God is perfect, and he's not against himself. That's a human problem. So people need. Let me leave you with that statement. I don't think I want to elaborate much more.
All I need to add to that is that there are only 10 commandments, and that's how easy the law is. What I'd like you to do, if you wouldn't mind, Geben, is just give a closing message to people who are watching. We've got about 250 people watching at the moment. If you want to just close off this live stream by just sending out a message to people.
Yeah, I think I've said it earlier, but self-determination starts at home. If there's a solution where you can start working towards self-determination, but you choose the easy route, then you will get the vruchten of that process. Sorry, my English is not always the best, but fruit. So you pluck the fruits that you want. So whoever is going to form part of solutions like this, and I'm not saying our solution is the best, but hopefully it will be, but if you don't want to be part of the solution and sitting back and criticizing everyone is not gonna secure your child's future. So get up and start being part of the change. I mean, we cannot sit back anymore. If you are a wealthy person with children and you want to just live for yourself, then I've got news for you that money might not be worth much in the future.
Yeah, I get it. All right.
100%.
Thank you very much, Geben. I just want to address the side chat and just say thanks, guys, for joining us tonight. I hope you found the discussion interesting. We'll be following Geben's project with interest because it is a project which has got legs. Jen did say, how do you buy shares in a private farm? This is too spread out. I can't see this working. Do you want to respond to that, Geben?
Yeah, 100%. I never said anybody's gonna own shares in a farm. So if you look at the supply system, you get a farm, then you get somebody that takes that produce to somewhere else, that gets then manufactured into something that then moves to the distribution warehouse, and from there it gets bought by the various retailers. So what we're saying is those middle parts, that is where we're gonna create our folk size. So the farmer who supplies the folk size will have shares in the folk size. The manufacturer who manufactures for the folk size will have shares in the folk size. But all of the below companies will still have their own businesses just as normal, but the folk size, everyone will own. So that is where the shares will vest, and that is typically the billions and billions of money that we are putting into corporations. That is where the folk size will take that roll over.
Right.
And that is where the shares will
Hopefully
vest.
take the monopoly away from the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers.
Yeah, and we want to give people shares because everyone that's forming part of it, whether it's labor, whether it's the end user who buys from the folk size, I think that is this closed circle, and then that is what we want to ultimately help people to achieve.
Right. Okay. I just want to thank the moderators. Thanks, guys, for the great work that you do. Don't forget, we have a new platform that's under development, and yes, it is under development, but you'll see the incredible work that Rudy's doing on that. It's called Loving Life TV, as in television.com, and Loving Life TV is just one word. And when it comes to the registration process, please look for the little link that says register now next to the big login button. And if you click on that first to register, you'll see that there's an option there for your email address. Put all that information in, then you'll be registered. It's a very, very simple process, but you don't register from the first page. You've got to actually go and take that link below the boxes which says registers now. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up this live stream. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us, Geben. I hope I'm going to be able to sort out my computer.
Next time, maybe you must interview me in Afrikaans, then I can tell my story much better.
But then you see the international audience wouldn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we can give them a transcript afterwards. I struggle to get my points across in English.
Oh no, you did very well. You did very well tonight.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Uncle, for what you do as well. I think you're doing a lot for this country, and I hope people do appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Geben. I appreciate your comments. All right, guys. Please take care, and I will leave the side chat open for a few minutes so you can say your goodbyes. And don't forget, tomorrow night at 8 p.m., joining us will be hopefully Michelle Mullard and Dr. Peter Hammond and a couple of other guys. And we're going to be talking about independence, a big, big subject for 2021, I believe. All right, guys, take care.